Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Stuff You Should Know About IP, where we take the complexities of intellectual property law and somehow make them even more confusing. I'm your host, a person who once had to Google the difference between a patent leather shoe and a patent. Spoiler, one's shiny, the other's filled with shiny legal jargon. Today, we're diving into the world of trade secrets. That's right, the stuff that keeps KFC's chicken so finger-lickin' good, Coca-Cola's formula locked up tighter than my weekend plans, and WD-40's, whatever makes it magic. So if you've ever wondered how these companies keep their secrets under wraps while I can't even remember my Netflix password, this episode is for you. Buckle up, let's decode the mysteries of trade secrets before I accidentally spill my own embarrassing ones. This is Stuff You Should Know About IP. Stuff You Should Know About IP is the only purely AI-generated podcast about intellectual property on the internet. If you enjoy listening to us muse about IP and watching the random outputs of ChatGPT read aloud by humans on a Teams recording, don't forget to click the like button, share with a colleague, and leave a comment wherever you're listening. Today's episode of Stuff You Should Know About IP is brought to you by the Patent Lawyer magazine. If you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on in the world of IP and patents, go to www.patentlawyermagazine.com. Each issue is free to read for up to 8 weeks. That's www.patentlawyermagazine.com for global news in the world of patents. All right, Tom, make me hungry. Let's talk about KFC's trade secret formula.
Before we talk about KFC's trade secret formula, we should talk a little bit about trade secrets, just to give kind of like a general view of what they are, right?
Yeah, I agree. That makes sense.
So I think it's funny because when I first graduated law school, I'm this young lawyer and I passed the patent bar. Okay. Now, it's not a trade secret bar. It's a patent bar. And as you can imagine, we don't study trade secrets in the patent bar. And I never studied trade secrets in law school. So I'm with a client and we're talking about patents. And the client said, "Hey, what about a trade secret?" And I kind of like deer in the headlights look. I said, yeah, we could consider a trade secret. And he says, "What is one?" And I said, "Well, it's a form of intellectual property. It's an intellectual property asset." Pause. And the guy looks at me and says, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, it's a trade secret. It's something different than a patent. It's not quite a patent, but it's a trade secret." Pause. "What's that? Are you saying it's a secret?" And then I paused and I went, "Yeah, I guess I am. It's a secret." I had no idea what a trade secret was. And it just seems so weird, right? I mean, there's no registration. There's no certificate that says you have it. It's just a secret. It's like much more than a pinky promise, but in the genre of a pinky promise, right? So I had to figure out what a trade secret is. So anyway, I'm just going to give you the quick view of what a trade secret is. First of all, it's any proprietary information. So first of all, it's got to be proprietary information. You own it, right? It's got to be valuable, and it must provide a competitive advantage for as long as it's kept secret. So the secret itself gives you the competitive advantage. And the next element is it's got to be such a big competitive advantage that you're willing to go to great lengths to keep it secret. And the words they use in most of these statutes are you use efforts that are commensurate with the value of the trade secret. So if it's a really valuable trade secret, you have to use really big efforts. If it's a smaller trade secret, you still have to use efforts, but not as big. And these could be like, when I think of trade secrets, I think of formulas, that's a big one, manufacturing processes, or even it could be business information, because you can get a competitive advantage with a secret list of customers, right? Sure. Even a secret list of prospects, a supplier list, even distribution channels, right?
Or a secret list of people who watch our videos.
Absolutely, right? Because we don't want
the podcast stealing. Because
the only problem though is I think we're up to like 1 billion people. So that's 1/8 of the planet.
Right.
That would be a tough list to keep secret because it's almost everybody, right?
At this point.
Yeah. So basically it's got to be proprietary to you, provide a competitive advantage for as long as it's kept secret, and you have to make an effort to keep it secret that's commensurate with its value. So people in invention review committees go through this stuff all the time if they're savvy. And that is, what's better, protecting a secret, protecting an invention with a trade secret or with a patent, right? And there's pros and cons. So a couple quick advantages of a trade secret are there's no registration fees or legal fees for drafting a trade secret or prosecuting it with patent offices all around the world, which is really expensive, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because with patents, you need protection in every nation where you need a patent in every nation where you want to be able to enforce your patent, right?
Yeah.
It's expensive. There's translation fees, government fees, legal fees in every nation.
Yeah.
And the other advantage of a trade secret is
wait, before you go any further, can I guess? Because you're a lawyer. You're supposed to know this stuff. Let's prove to everyone that it is possible for a person of average intelligence like me can learn about IP.
Right. Except I know that you are far above average intelligence.
Oh,
but
stop.
You're not a lawyer. But you're not a lawyer.
Careful. If you compliment me, I'll believe whatever you say.
Okay. So what's the next advantage?
So number 2 is no geographic restriction.
That's
you don't need to.
A big one,
I mean,
right?
It sort of goes to not having to file, right? But that's an advantage because normally with a patent, you only get the patent in the country where you file the patent.
That's right. And you can have a trade secret everywhere in the world without one filing.
Okay, and so
what's the next big one, though?
The next big one is, I think it's probably the biggest. I mean, it's my favorite thing about trade secrets.
Right.
Which is trade secret protection will last as long as you can keep it secret, potentially forever.
Forever, right? Yeah.
Is that right? Did I get it?
That's powerful, right? I mean, a patent, wherever you are in the world, typically lasts 20 years from the date you originally filed your patent application. So let's say that it takes 3 years to go from patent application to granted patent. That gives you 17 years of protection, okay?
Yep.
A trade secret could last 100 years, which we're going to find out soon when we talk about Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. But before we do that, let's talk about the cons of a trade secret, right?
Okay.
There's no guaranteed right? With a patent, you have a guaranteed right of 20 years from the date of filing. Mm-hmm. Trade secrets are as fragile as they are powerful. One unlawful or inappropriate disclosure of your trade secret, and it could explode into a big cloud of nothing in an instant. Yep. So you might only be able to keep your trade secret for a day, right? I mean, probably
that's
more
about
than
how
a day.
long I can keep any secret.
Exactly. So whenever somebody tells you something and says, "Hey, Ray, don't tell anybody," you are certain that you can keep that secret for at least an hour, right?
Well, I'm married, so
especially
anything you tell me, you have to assume my wife knows also.
That's right. So it's good that they haven't told you the KFC recipe, because then Rachel would also know it,
and I would be 400 pounds.
Yes. Because Rachel is a brilliant cook too, so she would be cooking KFC every day, and I'd probably be over there a lot more. So those are the pros and cons of patent versus trade secret. And like IP savvy people are trying to assess this all the time, right? Can we keep it secret? If we can't, why would we even think about trade secret protection? But let's talk about a great example of a company that has done a great job of keeping their secret, which is Kentucky Fried Chicken. And before we do that, I'm driving back from Spruce Lake the other night with Brandy, and we're passing a town called Springville. And I seem to recall that there's a KFC in Springville. So I said, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Of course, she wasn't. I said, we got to stop at KFC because I love my KFC. And I'm telling you, Ray, it was finger-lickin' good.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Did you lick your fingers, though?
I actually did, because it was finger-licking good. I mean, how can you not? I don't want to just waste all that flavor with a napkin, right? It's like losing 10% of the value of KFC. Yeah. So anyway.
That's a really great slogan too, by the way. I mean, no, this is not about trademarks,
I know.
but
I know.
like, how great is that KFC got that? Because there's so many things that you lick your fingers that when they're good,
when
but
no one's watching.
KFC. That's KFC.
Yeah. So anyway, they have had this. They've had this recipe since like the early 40s, right? Colonel Sanders, and they keep their 11 herbs and spices guarded at KFC headquarters. They have a state-of-the-art vault surrounded by motion detectors, cameras, and a 24/7 security personnel situation, right? So they take their secret very seriously. In fact, even the CEO and president and head chef of KFC do not know the exact recipe for KFC. Wow. KFC employs 2 different suppliers. Each produces approximately half of the herbs and spices blend, which are then blended together by a 3rd supplier. So it's impossible for any one supplier to produce the exact mix of the 11 herbs and spices, right?
Right.
Now that sounds pretty good so far. But while they still house the recipe at these KFC headquarters, which are super guarded, right? They have a second triple encrypted digital security copy created, and it was transported to a place called the Bonhoeff's Data Center. It's a former nuclear bunker named Pionin, built in 1943, and it's capable of withstanding a hydrogen bomb. So right now, the KFC second version or copy is buried 100 feet deep inside the White Mountains of Stockholm, protected behind a 40 centimeters thick steel door. So even if the world comes to an end and you happen to be still alive, go to Stockholm, get that recipe, and start cranking out some KFC.
Wow.
But the point is, trade secrets, they have to be protected. So yes, there's no registration, there's no legal fees, but you need the right infrastructure. And we're going to talk about that before the end. What are some tips on doing this? But I'm getting thirsty because I've been thinking about eating KFC. Now I need to drink some Coke.
I'm both hungry and thirsty right now. So this better not be much longer on this podcast.
Right.
I mean, besides the fact that we might bore the audience to death if we geek out too much about it.
Agreed.
Okay. So you want to hear what I learned about Coca-Cola in the last 45 minutes?
I do.
So there's basically the same general outline of things that Coca-Cola will do as with what you described with KFC. So very strict secrecy. It's considered to be one of the most closely guarded secrets in the world. You would think that, I don't know, our military secrets were like above the Coca-Cola recipe,
right,
but
right.
Perhaps not.
Exactly.
So supposedly only a few top executives know the complete formula, but I read some contradicting information which says that actually no one person knows. So there's this rumored 2-person rule where the formula is divided into parts and only certain top executives know their respective sections of the formula, so that theoretically it could only fully be recreated if these people work together to do it.
You gotta both have the key, right?
Right, exactly.
Get together, both turn the key.
Exactly, yeah. And you can't reach both key things.
Right. Yeah, one person can't do it. Right.
So, but that's been debated, and it's sort of like part of the Coca-Cola lore.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is ingredient storage, right? So the ingredients that are actually used in the formula are usually stored separately, right? Maybe not all the time or always, or every ingredient, but then they're mixed in a controlled environment to prevent anyone from actually deducing the recipe, the people who handle those ingredients. They have a ridiculously complex supply chain. Okay, so in order to obscure all of the exact ingredients and the proportions made up that make up the full formula, the actual syrup concentrate is made in multiple different locations before it's sent to the bottling plants, which kind of creates this web of smoke all around the whole process.
I love it.
And then there's a couple. So there's this legend. Again, this is just legend, right? I don't think anyone from Coca-Cola has officially confirmed that this is true. But one of the most famous stories is that the secret recipe is kept in a vault at the SunTrust Bank in Atlanta, Georgia, and that it's supposedly written down on a single piece of paper, and that access to the vault is so restricted that only a few top executives can actually enter, and that even they may not know the entire formula. And that there's another part to this where like in the last decade or so, 2010 or 11 or something, that they moved the formula to a specially designed vault, which is at the World of Coca-Cola Museum in Atlanta, and it's heavily guarded on display in like a very high security area, although it might not actually be there. So part of me, as I was reading through all of this, was sort of feeling like, okay, I feel like Coca-Cola is very strategically giving people in the media and like, in like conflicting bits of information just to sort of create confusion about this so that people don't actually try to figure it out. But there were two really interesting stories. So in 2006, there was a former secretary at Coca-Cola. I think her name was Williams, Joy Williams, and she had a couple accomplices. They actually, if you can believe this, they attempted to sell what they claimed was the Coca-Cola recipe to PepsiCo for $1.5 million. Now, anybody in the IP space, and let's be realistic, most of the people listening to this podcast are probably IP geeks like us, knows that there's no way PepsiCo would even want to touch that for like a second, right?
Yeah, because who turned them in?
PepsiCo, right?
Isn't that
like
cool?
Immediately they were like, hello, FBI.
Nothing to do with this.
And PepsiCo actually helped the FBI set up a sting operation.
I know. I love it.
Which is such a great story.
That is such a great story.
And then the other one is
wait. On that story, though,
yeah.
I heard that it wasn't actually the recipe.
No, it wasn't. Right.
Yeah, so it turned out that it wasn't even the recipe.
Or, again, maybe it was, and this is another one of Coca-Cola's,
it's part of the intrigue, part
misdirection.
Of the confusion. Yeah, misdirection. I like
exactly, that. Yeah. And then there were, in 79, the Phil Donahue show. Not sure what that is, Tom. I'm sorry. The Phil Donahue show.
God. Ray, you don't know the Phil Donahue show.
I'm sorry.
One of us, either I'm really
yet.
old or you're really young. Maybe it's both.
So apparently
By the way, in defense of Phil Donahue, he was one of the most famous talk shows of my generation.
I know. I'm only kind of teasing. I know of it, right? I
think he married Marlo Thomas, didn't he? Who's that girl?
Now you are going
way
over my
ahead
head.
of you. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So apparently in 79, the show claimed that they uncovered the formula and they broadcast it to the public. But I did read that there were experts who looked at it and like people have tried to recreate it from what they broadcast, and that it definitely wasn't the real Coca-Cola formula. And then there was another thing too, that they like someone, I think in This American Life, I think that's on NPR, right? This radio show, they claimed that there was an article that featured a photograph of the handwritten recipe in 1979, and that very closely resembled the Coca-Cola formula. But again, this was another one that was debunked. So the cool thing though about this, and this is the last thing I'll say, is that there is so much, it's almost like, you know how like Star Trek or Star Wars fans get, there's like this whole universe that exists and lore of like, this person said that person to this person one time and then this happened. Like there's a whole history to it that people get into. I mean, there's a whole Coca-Cola museum that and people are like excited about this, and there's a story behind it. And I feel like that mystique kind of adds to the allure of the brand.
I feel like it has helped to build the company. And here's how much I believe that. So that recipe was created in around 1890. If they had filed for patent protection in 1890, back in those days, patent protection in the U.S. at least lasted 17 years from the date of grant. So let's say that it took 3 or 4 years to be granted, in the prosecution phase. It would have been published to the world by like 1910. 1910, yep. Everyone would have known how to make it. 1910, more than 100 years ago, everyone would have been copying it. There might not even be a Coca-Cola today if they had chosen patent instead of trade secret, right?
Yep. Yeah.
But here's the other funny thing about it. I don't know how you feel about this, Ray, but it's, does it taste just the same if people try to mimic it? Well, I could go to 5 different fast food restaurants with their Coke machines and different taste everywhere I go. Like just the other day, I heard this woman. Oh, this morning I was meeting with that patent litigator, and she said, "Oh, I love going to Chipotle because they have the best Coke. They have the best Coke in the fountain drink." And she's kind of right. You go to the freestyle machine, you get one thing. You go to it's like, it's not just the recipe. It's like how they mix it up or something. But I find it funny. We're so cautious about the trade secret, but everywhere you go, it tastes a little bit differently.
Well,
maybe not the bottles. Maybe not the bottles.
Right? Okay, yeah. So
I'm talking about the fountain drinks,
Fair enough. Yeah, because, you go to like a sketchy diner and maybe it's flat, sometimes right? The carbonation isn't right. Or right. And it sometimes, or they're like the cup that it's in was not washed properly.
All these little things because it's taste, right?
I'm sure that Coca-Cola, to a certain extent, with the franchises, the larger businesses that sell their products, they probably have people that go around checking these things.
And I'm sure they're going to come to my house now after this podcast.
They might.
And they're going to say, "Tom, take us. Show us the light. Show us this Chipotle.
Yeah.
Show us how Chipotle has mastered the Coca-Cola formula."
I will say, I don't you really notice it. I mean, to be fair, I don't drink soft drinks all that often, but when I know that's your Achilles heel. Mine is KFC. No, just kidding. But what was I gonna say? Oh, the one thing I definitely notice is the Coke in a glass bottle with like they call it Mexican Coke. I don't know if that's the right, because I guess in Mexico they use cane sugar and not corn syrup. Yeah, I could be the people from Coca-Cola might be really mad at us right now, or me. But I have tried that version of it that you can get it in like the international aisle in our local grocery store, Wegmans. And that definitely tastes different. And I like it way better.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
I think the cane sugar versus corn syrup. By the way, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I have heard that too. It's like cane sugar. I don't know what I'm talking about. Back, forget everything.
We should probably just stop talking before we get an angry letter.
Let's move on to WD-40.
Oh, this is like the hot sauce of every garage guy. You put that stuff on everything.
Yeah, right. I heard there's 2 things you need in life. First is WD-40. Do you know what the second? Okay, WD-40 if it moves, and this other thing if it doesn't move.
I've never heard this before.
Duct tape.
Duct tape. Right. Yeah.
I've heard those 2 things. It's like if it moves, you need WD-40. If it doesn't move, you need duct tape. Right?
Yeah,
so you don't want it to move. Yeah, you don't want it to move. So anyway, WD-40, we're not going to waste any more time on this, but I just thought it was interesting that it said in the article I read, only one person knows the entire ingredient for WD-40. One person.
Seems like a really bad idea.
Right. I know. I mean, one person, one heart attack away from no more WD-40.
Yeah. To be fair, I'm not neither of us are the CEO of like a multi-billion-dollar company like WD-40.
Right? Yeah.
But
we're questioning the judgment of this wildly successful CEO.
Yeah. I'm guessing that their insurance policy is rather expensive, if that's true.
But maybe only one person knows the recipe in here, but they have the safe with the piece of paper.
Exactly. Or like several safes with parts of the formula or something like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, with those things in mind, I don't think we could leave this podcast without giving a few tips on how companies that don't happen to be Coca-Cola, KFC, and WD-40, who could have like these really over-the-top protection mechanisms in place.
Yeah.
What can regular companies do, right?
Yeah. I have one tip, and I know you know what my tip is, but you give yours first.
Okay. Well, if you want, you could lead off with your tip.
Well,
I'll give mine first.
I think it's the best, so let's save it for last.
Okay, let's save the best for last.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do, and you're going to give yours last. Okay. So, yes, exactly, Ray. Okay. And I didn't even put that one on my list.
Okay, good.
Now I know what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, anyway, first tip is enterprise training on trade secrets. And one of our clients has a rule that nobody can access a trade secret database without being trained on what is a trade secret and what are all the little bits and bytes of trade secrets. Because simply, if people don't know what a trade secret is, how can you expect them to follow the rules associated with trade secrets, right?
That was my tip.
Oh, okay. I thought there was. Okay, I thought yours was another one, which I'm going to tell now.
Because we sell corporate training on trade secrets.
Okay, I'm going to finish up with the one I thought.
No, but that's okay. The audience gets the point.
Okay. Next thing is, your IP review committee should have a decision tree associated with trade secrets. Yes. A lot of companies say, should we patent it or not? But a trade secret decision should be in there, and a decision tree would be good. Like, for example, there's some basic rules. If it can be reverse engineered, it's not suitable for trade secret protection, because there's companies out there back in the olden days. I don't know if they're still around, but there was a company called TEIS, tear apart everything under the sun. That's what TEIS stood for. And they would basically be paid to take products, tear them apart, figure out how to make them, rebuild them, and give the recipe, if you will, to their client, right? Mm-hmm. So if TEIS could take your product and reverse engineer it, it's not suitable for trade secret. You should probably default to patent if you can. Another is, if you do not have a culture for keeping secrets secret, it's a huge risk. So either create the culture, which a lot of training, right? Or don't keep it as a trade secret. Then another thing is, let's say you say, well, I'm going to try a patent instead because I want that definitive protection. I want to know that for 20 years from the date of filing, I have the right to enforce my patent. Well, one thing you have to ask yourself is, how would you know if someone's infringing your patent in the first place if you had a patent?
Yeah.
It could be a manufacturing process that you have no access to. It could be they've stolen your supplier list, and now they're getting inexpensive supply like you are to get their costs down. So you have to ask yourself, can I figure out if someone were infringing? If they were, if not, maybe think more about trade secrets. And then the other thing is, how long would it be useful for you? If it's of short duration, you only need protection for 5 or 10 years. As long as you can find infringers, if they're infringing, patent could be a good way to go. So that's number 2, is have a decision tree with your IP review committee. Number 3, catalog your trade secrets. If you don't know what they are, how can you expect your people to protect them if they don't know what they are, right? Yep. So you need to catalog your trade secrets, okay? Next one, need to know, even within your company. This is part of training, and this is part of your culture. If you have a trade secret, don't tell anybody, because unless they need to know, and what need to know doesn't mean I'm so curious, Ray, if you don't tell me, I'm going to explode. That's not needing to know. Needing to know is if they need to know to advance your corporate objectives in connection with that trade secret, right?
Yeah.
I need to make my 1/3 of the Coke formula, and I'm the one in charge of doing it. I need to know, right? Absolutely. But short of that, I don't need to know. Hardly anybody needs to know, by the way. Right. Hardly anybody. Okay, the other one is NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. Mm-hmm. Those are for everyone who has access to your trade secret, including partners. You might have to do a partnership with somebody. You want them to have an NDA, but it's more than that. It's more than that. You have an NDA signed, but do you know this, Ray? NDAs do not prevent unlawful disclosures of trade secret, of any confidential information.
Yeah.
They merely deter unlawful disclosures. It's a legal shield. It's not a real shield, right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you trust the other people, okay? Yeah. If your spidey sense is tingling that they're not trustworthy, don't disclose it even with an NDA, okay? Next is, make sure that when you do make disclosures under the NDA, you have a minimalist mentality, right? Your mentality is only give what they need to know. Even though they've signed an NDA, that doesn't mean they're not going to steal your secrets. So give them, if you trust them and they need access, just give them what they need. Next thing about NDAs is be sure the people who are signing the NDA and are working under the NDA have signed their own NDA and they have trade secret training. So what you might say is, hey, look, it's a quick 1 hour training. If you're going to work with us on this project, you got to sign the NDA. I got to trust you. I'm going to give you the minimum that you need to know. Oh, and by the way, you need to take this 1 hour training course because I need to know that you know what a trade secret is, right?
Absolutely.
I need to know that you know how important it is to keep them secret. And then the final thing is make sure you know exactly who will have access to your trade secrets within that organization. And I want it in writing. Okay. Yep. I want it in writing. Who's going to have access? Okay.
Yeah.
Next thing, number 6, trade secret mentality. That means until you know what you're going to do with this invention, keep it as a trade secret because you can never go back. Let's say that you disclose your invention because you think you're going to get a patent and you still have a 12-month period in the US at least before you have to file your patent application. Well, if you decide then to keep it as a trade secret, once it's out of the bottle, you can't go back. So the mentality should be until your boss, who knows, if they know, tells you this is going to be kept as a patent and not a trade secret, keep it as a trade secret.
Absolutely.
2 more things. One is have the right IT infrastructure in place so that you can do 2 things. 1, restrict access, password protected access. And 2, know who accessed it in case you suffer a breach, right? Because you might want to enforce your trade secrets. They call them trade secret misappropriation. And if you want to enforce your trade secrets, you need proof that somebody had access to your trade secret. And that means your IT infrastructure can tell you, I know that Ray downloaded this trade secret information onto his computer on this date and time. Now I know that you had it, Ray. And now if you go back to your other nation and you give away that secret, now it's more proof for me. So I need to know that you had it. So first, restrict access to keep people out. And second, make sure that you know who went in. And the final thing is have the right physical security in place, which restricts access to areas that might have trade secret information. The key entry, the
ID,
swipe,
the badges,
the badges, but also
biometric
security guards to make sure people aren't walking around. We have some clients who say that they do not let anybody walk around their organization on their own. If they have to go to the restroom, somebody takes them to the restroom, right?
Yeah.
And that's
we see it all the time on client visits.
Yeah, and by the way, take them to the restroom. You get to chit chat. You get to bond a little bit. What's the big deal, right?
Right.
So
it's a little awkward when they stand right out the side of the stall, though.
Right, or right next to you at the urinal.
Yeah.
But anyway, talking to you the whole time. But anyway, you don't have to do that. But anyway, I'll tell you one funny story before we wrap, okay? We have a client who you know, but we won't mention, who came to us and said, hey, can you create an exit interview video? Yeah. We want to scare people to make sure they know if you take our trade secrets to your next company, we are coming for you, right?
Yep.
So I said, oh, hell yes, we're doing that. So we write the script, we edit the script together. They see the script, they read it, they love the script. I go on camera, but they didn't expect me to be so scary on camera. They watch the video and they're like, oh, hell no, we can't give that. We're going to scare people to death with that one. You have to tone it down a little bit. So we had to tone it down for their video, but I made a separate copy for our other clients, which we did not tone it down.
That's the one where it's like flames in the background.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My fingernails are shooting lasers. And my basic message is, if you take our trade secrets and disclose them to anyone, we are coming for you and you're going to prison.
I've got chills.
Exactly, right? So anyway, that's it, Ray. That's our trade secret program.
All right, everyone, if you enjoyed listening to this episode of Stuff You Should Know About IP, make sure to smash that like button, hit share, leave a comment, let us know what you thought. We'll see you next time.